Good afternoon, friends. Today we have another session on the case taking, and we are now in this session we will be discussing about the importance of the family history as well as how we can take up that and what we have to ask for the during that family history and what will be the interpretation, how we can interpret it. So for this I am sharing my PPT so that we can have more discussion, more information on it. Now, this is the case taking for the family history in homeopathy. We have already discussed on the introductions part, and then for the chief complaints and the past history. The importance of the past history we have already discussed, and in this session we are going to discuss on and share on the family importance of the family history. So, what we understand about the family, this is very important because in the human context, family is a group of people affiliated to by consanguinity, affinity, or co-residence, where the people are having the same personal affections, relationship, and living at the same position. And in most societies, principal institutions for the socialization for children extended from the human family unit by biological, cultural affinity, marriage, economy, culture, tradition, honor, and friendships are concepts of family that are physical and metaphorical or that grow increasingly during inclusive, extending to the community, village, city, region, nationwide, global village, and humanity. So what is the family? It is a grouping, the small group. We begin the life within a small family. We have the father, we have the parents, and then some other brothers and the sisters, and some older generations like grandfather. And so this is the beginning stage. From there, this family grow and it becomes bigger and bigger, and it gets transformed into the another society. Then comes the village, region, city, nations, global, and this is getting branched and branched. So the branching of the family has created entire all over the global villages, and so we have the family which is started as a small unit. It is becoming grower and grower. The impact of the family on our personality is very important, and this we have to, and for the medical purpose also, for our analysis and evaluation of the symptoms also, it is important that we must have the proper understanding about the family and what are the impacts on it. Call it a clan, call it a network, call it a tribe, or call it a family. Whatever you call, whenever you need one. So what is the being as a human being, as a human person? What is the most essential part? We cannot live alone. We need some friends. We need some family. We need some people to live with. So it may be the clan, it may be the network, it may be the tribe, but basically it is a family where we live together. It is good quotations from Jane Howard. And one of the primary functions of the family is to produce and reproduce persons biologically and socially. Thus, one experience, the one family shifts over the time. So, the primary function is the reproductions of the generations. Father and mother, they reproduce their children. So, this is biologically, and then it becomes the initiation is biological, and then it becomes social. So, beginning from the biological necessity, it goes into the social functions. And from the perspective of the children, the family is a family is a family of orientation. What is the beginning stage for the children? They get oriented, they understand about the life, they understand about the universe and the society only through the family. What the guardian tells them, what the people, their parents tell them. So This is called the this aspect of the family is very important for beginning a stage for the socializations. We have to socialize. We are a social animal. We are people who live in the social. But how we can enter into the social identity and have a relationship, it begins and we learn at the family itself. And family procreations. The family procreation, the goal of which is to produce and to inculcate and socialize the children. The primary uh, function of the family is to produce the children and then to make them socialize them, to make them the social animal. So producing children is not only the function of the family in society, with the sexual division of labor and marriage and resulting in relationship between two people. It is necessary for the formation of economically productive household. Why we all want to have the children? So that we must have the followers. We must want to we want that there should be the generations to follow us. This is important for us. And for living purpose, it is very important that our livelihood is important. What we require, the economy, what we require, the shelters and safety and security. All these aspects we learn at the family level. And different types of the family. How many types of the family we have now? First is the conjugal. Conjugal family includes only the husband, wife, and unmarried children. This is called conjugal. This is a small unit of the family. Uh, the most common form of this family is regularly referred in sociology as a nuclear family. So conjugal family means from where you generate when you come up. So husband, wife, and unmarried children, and this is called the nuclear family. Then one single family. Family consists of a parent and his her children and other people. Although the concept of consanguinity originally referred to relationship by the blood. So now with the blood relationship is there. The grandfather, parents, many of the peoples are living together, and for that, this is called the con. So when it is a joint family, so nuclear family, and then from nuclear family you are getting the joint one. Then matrilocal family consists of mother, children, and biological options. Although the adoptions of the children is practiced in nearly every society, this kind of family is where women have the resources to rear their children by themselves, or where men are more mobile than the women. So it is woman dominated, mother dominated. That's why it is known as matrix. All other things is male persons are responsible for earning the money. They bring the money for the family, and it is handed over to the mother, and the mother runs the family. So it is called the matrilocal family. So nuclear family, joint family, and matrilocal family. Then the role of the family history is important for complete of the totality of the symptoms of the patient. The one part of the symptoms that we get from the patient is from the case complaints that you get and the past complaints. The other complete it gets completed with the family, and then fourth dimension should be the environment. So all four components constitute is responsible for making for the totality. The presenting problems, the past experiences, and the family background and the environmental. So all these four important phenomena is required, and thus the family history is a contributor for the totality of the symptoms. And modern textbook of practice of medicine have mentioned several clinical conditions in which the familial tendency have been delineated as an important ethiopathologic factors. And from homeopathic perspective also, Dr. Henneman and post-Henneman stalwarts have also clinically utilized the important aspects of the patient's history in case proceeding. And basically, the family history is related to the search of genetic disease. Some genetic diseases are rare, although though altogether they represent a major cause of morbidity and mortality. So, how long the longevity of the life and the genetic factors. This is the prime objective for uh, getting the family history. And chromosomal and metabolic disorders are genetic related and play great role in changes in the disease conditions being coming from the family. And genetic background plays a role in virtually every medical condition. This is particularly true when one considers disease susceptibility, the interaction of genetic background with the environment, host response to illness, and to pharmaceutical agents or metabolic drugs. So susceptibility is another important factor. So how the susceptibility, there is the background of the genetics, which has to interact with the environment, which has to interact with the disease, and which has to interact with the medicines, the metabolic disease. So the importance of the genetic is very much important. The information about the genetical disorder or the genetical disease we get from the family history. Then genetics has the traditions has traditionally been viewed through the window of relatively rare single gene disease. Many disorders such as hypertension, asthma, diabetic susceptibility to cardiovascular disease are also affected by genetic background as often evident from a family history. Here. So many of the hypertensions that we acquire during our lifetime, but many of the hypertensions, asthma, diabetic, they have the family background. So we can distinguish between the cognitive, the disease coming out from the stress and disease coming out from the genetic disorders. So basic purpose of the gene is the production of structural protein and enzyme. Then the basic purpose of the genes is the transcription. This is the purpose of the genes, processing and translation. And medical genetics is concerned with the study of human genetic variation. The basis of the variation is mutation or changes in the DNA sequence. And mutation can do occur in every cell of the body. When they occur in somatic cells, there is a risk of the cancer development. And when they occur in the germ line, there is a risk that offspring may inherit structural or functional. So what you see when it is at the somatic level, that is it is producing the cancer. When it is at the germ-line, that means the structural and function, the syphilitic disorders are observed. So both we can identify the miasma of the Sora, syphilis and psychosis through this understanding. And many mutations are benign or silent. Other explains variation in severity of a genetic disease that is called polymorphism. Genetic disease also brings the complexity of the disease. So there may be the silent or benign, but there are the severity also. So serious consequences observed. Homeopathic concern. It is now recognized that homeopathic medications can affect gene expressions because in the absence of pharmacological intervention, biological changes such as disease progress and promotions of disease symptoms as improving process must be driven by activations and deactivations of a specific gene that synthesizes the protein, enzyme, hormones, and inflammatory mediators, for example, that are needed to bring about those changes. It therefore follows that some homeopathic remedies must have the capacity to promote changes in the gene activity. It has become very important to understand more about the gene targeting capabilities of homeopathic substance. And molecular biological technology have now confirmed that highly diluted substances such as plant and tissue extract do have the capacity to boost the gene expression in a specific way. So the science is also coming to the things that is highly diluted, highly that means is like the potentile substances, the molecular biology, they have the capacity to boost the genes expression. then Dr. Henneman mentioned in the Organon of Medicines in 78 records, the true natural disease are those that arises from the chronic miasm, which when left to themselves and unchecked, always go on increasing and growing worse and torment the patient to the end of his life and with ever aggravating fact. So what is the true nature of the chronic disease? They always have the chronic march in the blood. So and they keep on growing. This is that. And every march is nothing but the defense mechanism at the genetic level. And destructive defense mechanism is including is indicating syphilitic and constructive or physiological mechanism as the SORA. The chronic miasm is the mother where responsible for hereditary diseases disorder in child when he was in the intrauterine state, and this could be treated by homeopathic remedy. The concept of genetic individualization can help in finding out the scientific basis of the individualization. Then in homeopathy, no two individuals are alike. That we know. Individualization is the basic for our homeopathy. And having the same complaints are prescribed the same medicine, not the same medicine. The study of genetics helps us in finding out the two individuals requiring two different medicines, and each medicines differ in the genotype and the phenotype. Genotype is a gene complement or genetic constitution of an individual with regard to one or more characters irrespective of whether the genes are expressed or not. And phenotype is observable by or measurable structural or functional characteristics of an individual with regard to one or more characters, which is a result of genetic products brought to expression in a given environment. Now, a family history has got the collecting information for the family history. We have to collect the heritable disease. There is a family history of the family history of the cancer, family history of the diabetes, this type of the rubrics you can get. Then current family health status, then psychological disorder in the family, and interactional and relationship data are the important. And obtaining the family psychiatric history. This is very important, psychiatric history, because the psychic of the family is also expressed in the individual. A family history succeeds in identifying unsuspected case of illness that need treatment that may suggest to the physicians about the family system exists. And detection of family role and function will give assistance in achieving therapeutic goals and compliance. Not only man and individual health or illness be a result of what happens in the family, but the family may be predictably altered by the illness of one or its member. Using family system theory, some effective intervention may now be directed at altering the family impact on the illness. The family strength and weakness and its ability to withstand major stresses in the future can be assessed. A good family history may reveal unexplained symptoms to be the manifestation of stress-related psychosomatic illness. And then disorder seems to be running in the family. Now, this is very important. If you can ask the patient, you can get you can have the first, second, or third degree of the direct ancestor, second generations, third generations are there. So a particular disease might be described as running in a family if more than one person in the family has the condition. And some disorders that affect multiple family members are caused by genetic variant, also known as mutation, which can be inherited, passed from parent to the children. Other conditions that appear to run in family are not caused by variant in single gene. Instead, environmental factors such as dietary habit, pollutants, or a combination of genetic or environmental factors are responsible for this disorder. It is not always easy to determine whether a condition in a family is inherited. A genetic professionals can use a person's family health history, record of the health information about the person's immediate and extended family to help determine whether the disorder is genetic component. So disorder seems to be running in the family is very important. Now, just you see the degree of relationship. How many degree of the relationship? The first degree relationship are the parents, children, brother, and the sister. And second degree relationship are grandparents, aunts, auntie, uncle, niece, and nephew, and the grandchildren. And third generation relative are the first cousin. That means is the brothers, father's brother, children. So these are important layers that we must keep in mind. We can get from the first degree, second degree, and third degree everywhere. If you see the disorders at everywhere in the all the three degree, you can say that it is running in the family. If it is at one level only, then it can be it may have the environmental or some aspects of the genetics also. So we can get if you see that same disease having in the different persons, that will help you. And even the multiple type of the chronic disease, like father is suffering from the heart disease, and then mother is suffering from the lungs problem, and other my grandfather had suffered from the kidney problem. So these multiple type of the problems, they also indicates about the mixed mind that is running and the multiple genetic factors. Now, there are the different way of genetic conditions can be inherited. How? One is the autosomal. One altered copy of the gene in each cell is sufficient for a person to be affected by an autosomal dominant disorder. In some cases, an affected person inherits the condition from an affected parent. In others, the condition may result from new variant in the gene and occur in people with no history of the disorder in their family. And that you can see in the Huntington disease and Marfan syndrome. Then there is another autosomal recessive. In autosomal recessive inheritance, variant occurs in both copies of the gene in each cell. The parents or an individual with a autosomal recessive condition each carry one copy of the altered gene, but they typically do not show signs of and symptoms of the condition, like cystic fibrosis, sickle cell disorders. Then X-linked dominance, because or the inheritance pattern many X-linked disorders is not clearly dominant or recessive. Some experts suggest that condition be considered X-linked than X-linked dominant or X-linked recessive, like the glucose 6 phosphate dehydrogenase deficiency, X-linked thrombocytopenia. Then we have Y-linked disorders. A condition is considered Y-linked if an altered gene that causes the disorder is located in the Y chromosome. So X chromosomes, Y chromosome, one of the two sex chromosomes in each of the male cells, because only males have the Y chromosomes. In Y-linked inheritance, a variant can only pass from father to the son, not to the daughter, because it is the Y gene. So Y chromosomal infertility, some case of the Swyer syndrome. Then codominant. In codominant, it inherits two different versions, alleles of the genes are expressed, and each version makes a slightly different protein. Both alleles influence the genetic traits or determine the characteristics of genetic condition. So, like ABO positive group, blood positive group, and alpha antitrypsin deficiency. Then mitochondria, inheritance also known as maternal inheritance, applied to gene in mitochondria, DNA, mitochondria, which are structural in each cell and that convert molecule into energy, and each contains a small amount of the DNA. So this is the labor in heredity and optic neuropathy, etc. Now, different way of genetic conditions can be inherited. How it can be inherited? Many health conditions are caused by the combined effects of a multiple gene, described as polygenic, or by interactions between gene and the environment. Such can, like if you have the genetic disorder, and if the environment is favorable for the genetic disorder, the conditions will come up, the symptoms will like that. And some disorders usually do not follow the pattern of inheritance listed above. An example of conditions caused by variant in multiple gene or gene environment interactions include heart disease, type 2 diabetes, schizophrenia, and certain type of the cancer. And disorder can caused by changes in the number or structure of chromosomes also do not follow the straightforward pattern of inheritance listed above. To read about how chromosomes occur. Now, status of children with the genetic disorder that runs in the family. When a genetic disorder is diagnosed in the family members often want to know the likelihood that their children will develop in the future, forecasting about the disease. This can be difficult to predict in some cases because many factors influence a person's chances of developing a genetic, but some hypotheses can be created. Autosomal dominant inheritance, a person affected by an autosomal dynamic disorder has a 50% chance of passing the altered gene to each children. And chances that child will not be inherited the altered gene is also 50%. Then autosomal recessive inheritance, two unaffected people who carry each carry one copy of the altered gene for an autosomal recessive disorder have 25% chances with each pregnancy of having a child affected by the disorder. Then X-linked dominant inheritance, the chances of passing an X-linked dominant conditions differ between men and women because men have only X chromosomes and one X chromosomes and one Y chromosomes, while women have the two X chromosomes. They don't have the Y chromosomes. Then X-linked recessive inheritance, because of the difference in sex chromosomes, the probability of passing the X-linked recessive disorder also between men and women. The son of a man with X-linked recessive disorder will not be affected and his daughter will carry one copy. So sometimes there is alterations is also. Then X-linked, because the inheritance pattern of many X-linked disorders is not clearly dominant or recessive. Some experts suggest that condition be considered X-linked rather than X-linked dominant or X-linked recessive. As above, the probability of passing on an X-linked disorder differs between men and the women. Then Y-linked inheritance, because only male have a Y chromosome, only male can be affected by the Y-linked disorder. All sons of a man with Y-linked disorder will be inherited the conditions from their father. Then codominant inheritance. In codominant inheritance, each parent contributes a different version of the particular gene, and both versions influence the both resulting genetic factors. So codominant, the problem are coming from the father and mother both. Then mitochondrial inheritance. The mitochondria, which is the energy producing center for inside the cell, each contains a small amount of the DNA, and disorder of mitochondrial inheritance results from the variant of the mitochondrial DNA. So heritability. Now another important factor is heritability. Heritability is a measure of how well difference in people's genes account for difference in their traits. And traits can include characteristics of such as height, eye color, intelligence, as well as disorder like schizophrenia and autism spectrum disorder. In scientific terms, heritability is a statistic concept represented as h to the power 2, that describe how much a variation is given in a given trait can be attributed to genetic variation. An estimate of the variation of a trait is specific to one population in one environment, and it can change over time as circumstances change. Then heritability estimates range from 0 to 1. Heritability close to 0 indicates that almost all the variability in the traits among people is due to environmental factors with very little influence from the genetic difference. And characteristics such as religion or language spoken have a heritability of 0 because they are not under genetic control. The heritability close to 1 indicates that almost all of the variability in a trait comes from genetic differences with very little contributions from environmental factors. And many disorders that are caused by variant, also known as mutation in single gene, such as phenylketonuria (PKU), have slight high heritability. Then most complex traits in people, such as intelligence and multifactorial disease, have a heritability somewhere in the middle, suggesting that their variability is due to the combination of genetic and environmental factors. Heritability has historically been estimated from studies of the twins, and identical twins have almost no differences in their DNA, while fraternal twins share about 50% of their DNA. If a trait appears to be more similar in identical twins than in fraternal twins, when they are raised together in the same environment, and genetic factors likely play an important role in determining the trait. By comparing a trait in identical twins versus fraternity twins, researchers can calculate an estimate of the heritability. Now, heritability can be difficult to understand, so that there are many misconceptions about what it can and cannot tell us about the given trait. Heritability does not indicate the proportion of the trait determined by gene and what proportion is determined by environment. So heritability of 0.7 does not mean that if a trait is 70% caused by genetic factors. It means that 70% of the variability in the trait in a population is due to the genetic differences among the people. Knowing the heritability of a trait does not provide information about their gene or environmental influence are involved, or how important they are in determining the trait. Heritability is not the same as familial. A trait is described as familial if it is shared by member of the family. Traits can appear in family for many reasons in addition to genetics such as similarities in lifestyle and the environment. For example, the language that is spoken tend to be shared in the family, but it has no genetic contribution or so it is not heritable. And heritability does not give any information about how easy or difficult it is to change a trait. For example, hair color is a trait of with high heritability, but it does not. It is very easy to change with the dye. The heritability is of particular interest in understanding the traits that are very complex with many contributing factors. Heritability can give initial clue about the relative influence of nature and nurture, or complex traits, and it can give researchers a place to start teaching part the factors that influence these traits. Now, technique. Illustrating the family history involves questioning about the several areas of the patient's life, medical, psychological, and social. The family members of significant other may need to be considered as additional source of information. And data collection can be most efficiently and completely accomplished using the combination of a self-administered health history questionnaire and a personal interview of a particular interest, understanding traits that are very complex with many contributing factors. Heritability can give initial clue as to the relative as to the relative environment, or complex it can give researchers a place to start start apart the factors that influences this stage. Some of the elements of the family history seems most appropriate when they can be related to the present history, such as with the presenting couplet suggesting politis or angina of chest pain. Patient can understand the relevance of such questions if the illness under consideration has occurred in their other family members. When no logical connection to the current problem can be made, inserting the family history just before or after their view of system is most efficient and may have the effect of shortening the list of the questions that need to be asked later. And opening this line of questions can accomplish with a bridging statement such as sometimes the health of a person of the family members may affect one's own health. Now, much time you need to take a family history? Taking timing for the family history within the context of medical history is variable. Some elements of the family history seem most appropriate when they can be related to the present illness, such as with presenting complaints suggesting colitis or angina. And patient can understand the relevance of such questions if the illness under considerations has occurred in the family members. When no logical connections to the current problems can be made, inserting the family history just before or after the review of the system is most efficient and may have the effect of shortening the list of the questions that need to be asked. And opening this line of questions can be accomplished with bringing the sometimes in the health person, family members may affect one's own health. Please tell me about the health and illness of your family. So when you ask like this, the question is dependent on the type of the person. It is not that how much time we have to invest. We have to invest as much the time according to the patient's understanding, because everything that you have to collect is from the patients, and they will only tell you okay, what they will only help you in gathering the family history. Now, what are the contents of the family? What we have to ask? That first you have to know about the composition of the family for at least 3 generations for siblings, children, and the parents. Then name, sex, and age of or date of birth. Then date of marriage, divorce, and death. Then racial or ethnic origins. Members of extended family, significant other homosexual, heterosexual partners, familiar heritable diseases, genetic disorder and congenital malformations, biochemical or metabolic disorder, renal and cardiovascular disorder, family psychiatric history, neurological disorder, interaction, relationship and psychosocial problems, role of family members, type and strength of the family, and major stressors, members living together in the household. So these are the area where you have to inquire, where you can get the habit. Then another factor, hereditary factors can be some the questions death of the infant of the children. Some children die soon after the birth. Then congenital malformations, biochemical or metabolic disorders, mental retardation, spontaneous abortions, infertility, unexplained or sudden death. Uh, then any family members undergoing genetic counseling or evaluations, neurological disorder, then family psychiatric history and interaction and relationship among each family member, psychosocial problems should also be sought at this time. Major stressors in the family may be responsible for the physical condition. Then you have to ask about the similar conditions in other families, like a stomach or pain or headache in an adolescence often can stem from the extreme anxiety about an alcoholic parent or impending divorce of the parents. Identify the follow. Provides the nutrition's role in the family? Who is the breadwinner and who makes the decision? Where are the conflicting overflows unmissed and dominating relationships? Who are the persons who living in the immediate household? So these are the area that will give you some hints about the heritable illness in the family. And recording data from the family history can be best accomplished with combinations of diagrammatic and a narrative form. You can prepare that family tree. Then when genetic and interactions data are combined, the display is referred to as genogram. And this represents an important modifications of the pedigram diagram in which one medical diagnosis are presented. And then retrieval of information about all members of the family is accomplished at the glance and may compensate for the inability to store all charts of the family together. And finally, it should be emphasized that a statement in the medical record, such as refer to old charts or family history, is never acceptable. Family history and relationship are dynamic and ever changing. Old charts may be useful for the information. So, basic science is related to the single gene disorder, multifactorial disorder, and chromosomal family. So, positive family history may closely, clearly show an autosomal dominant, autosomal recessive, or sex-linked pattern inheritance. In contrast, a genetically determined disorder may exist with a negative family history. And single gene disorders refer to the autosomal dominant, autosomal recessive, sex-linked dominant, and sex-linked recessive. Nearly all sex-linked conditions are X-linked, and there are many, more than 3,000 traits known as suspected to be inherited as Mendelian or single gene disorder. Autosomal dominant traits appear in each generation and are transmitted to approximately 50% of both male and female offspring. Homozygotes generally do not survive, and autosomal recessive traits are usually found only in siblings and not in the parents of all offspring. And transmission affect roughly 25% of both male and female siblings. Multifactorial genes disorder are conditions that are produced by the combinations of gene and environmental factors. Consequently, diagnosis is difficult. And environmental teratogens such as alcohol or drugs have identified as two or two co-etiologic conditions in some of these factors. Much of the adult genetic disease is multifactorial in origin and encompasses such health problems as hypertension, coronary artery disease, and family cancer syndrome, and diabetic and epilepsy. Careful family populations study are necessary to spark the suspicion of a genetic disorder. So the chromosomal abbreviations are also important. It is basically of the two types: numerical type, in which extra or missing chromosomes occur, and structural, in which segment deletions or duplication, inversion, translocation, or isochromosomes occur. The structural alterations are less common than numerical one, and numerical alterations primarily arises through the process of non-dysfunction in meiosis and non-dysfunctions in meiosis after fertilizations have occurred, resulting in two distinct cell types referred as mosaicism. And direct assessment of chromosomes by a karyotype is required for diagnosis. Clinical significance. For our purpose, usefulness of the family history begins with the search of genetic disease. Some genetic diseases are rare, although they represent a major cause for the morbidity and mortality. It has been estimated that about 20 to 30% pediatric hospital admissions are for some genetically related conditions. For adults, this figure approaches 10%. Genetic counseling can be provided to explain the progression, prognosis, and management of current illness, to understand risk for recurrence and alternative available to prevent recurrence, and to minimize the burden of the family and community of genetic disorder in a way most compatible with the patient's personal values and the religious belief. A careful family history may provide not only help in the management of patient disorder, but also the clue for screening and identifying other at-risk patients for whom either prevention or early intervention is appropriate. Then obtaining family psychiatric history has a definite clinical benefit. A child of a schizophrenic mother has an eightfold increase in the risk of that disorder, as well as increase in the risk of the suicide. In the general population, anxiety neurosis has a prevalence about 5%, which increases to about 50% in the offspring of person with the disorder. Of persons with mania or depression, roughly two-thirds of the offspring between 5 to 15 years will be clinically depressed. In these conditions, the family history succeeds in identifying unsuspected cases of illness that needs treatment and may suggest to the physician that started the family therapist. Detection of family roles and functions will give assistance in achieving therapeutic goals and compliance. Not only may an individual's health or illness be the result of what happens in the family, but the family may be predictably altered by the illness of one of its members. And using family system theory, some effective interventions may now be directed at altering the family impact on the illness. A family strength and weaknesses and the ability to withstand major stresses in the future can be assessed. A good family history may reveal unexplained symptoms to be the manifestation of stress-related or psychotraumatic illness. So, friends, this is about the family history. I thank you that we have tried to give you the best of the information collections that I have tried to make. And with this, if you have any questions or doubts, you can ask me at my email ID ricity@gmail.com or email ID WhatsApp number 9431020622. So thank you. With this session, I close the uh, PPT. So I see many people making comments, but none of the comments is. It is only appreciation. Very nice, sir. Nice, sir. Very nice, sir. Very nice, sir. This is not good comment. There should be some remarks also. There should be some questions also. Because you have to learn how to question. This is important for us. Without questioning, we cannot learn. I have to so many things that I have told. It took a lot of time for me to understand. It is not that I understood. Preparing the slides, the articles, I had taken much of the time of mine to make this presentation. Basically, for the family history, it is one of the base where you can get some of the genetic as well as the psychiatric history of the patient. The mental setup of the patient. It is dependent on the family, dependent on the wife. Suppose there is a still relationship between the father and the mother, the child will definitely will have the different type of the personality. And similarly, if one person is sick in the family, like a member of the family is getting cancer, and the whole of the financial ruin is there in the family, and the every possibilities of get ruined. So this is important that we must have who are the family. Even if it is not genetically, they may have the sociologically, environmental and mental stressors on the impact on the patient's history. So I don't see any questions here right now, and I close this session. We'll meet again next Thursday with another informative topics on the case taking process. We are running a series of the case taking, and every Thursday we are talking about the case series, case study. So let us regularly interact and meet. and be prepared to ask the questions. So thank you very much. I end this broadcast right now.